All right, good afternoon. This is the Committee on Administration for the County of Dunn. We are meeting here today, room 60 of the county office building. At this point, if our county manager, Dan, would call the roll.
It's not as easy when everybody's not here. I gotta remember who's missing. Supervisor Vogel. Supervisor Bauer.
Here.
Supervisor Bashan. Supervisor Headland.
Here,
And Supervisor
Supervisor
Story.
Story, and she is excused. She is on vacation. All right. All right, we have a quorum. The next item on our agenda, approval of the meeting minutes, August 28th, of 2025.
We'll move to approve the minutes as corrected.
All right,
I will second.
okay, motion by Supervisor Bashan, seconded by Supervisor Bauer. Any questions or further corrections? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Thank you very much. Monthly staff reports. Our public comment, I'm sorry, I don't want to skip over that. Do we have any public comment? I have none. Clerk has none, and no one staff does. All right, we're going to move on. Monthly staff reports. These reports come from our county manager, finance, criminal justice collaboration, our treasurer, our IT department, our land information office, our corp counsel, county clerk, and human resources all report to the Committee on Administration. They have all submitted written reports along with finance reports update to this committee prior to us coming to this meeting. Any questions or concerns about any of those reports? Supervisor Bauer.
Yeah, I just got corporate counsel had talked about the realm, I guess, the foreclosures.
Mhm.
For 2021, what is that costing the county? I mean, how far, it hurts our budget when they don't pay their taxes, right? I
That
mean,
is correct.
So I know there's a process. You gotta wait 5 years or 3 years, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, 3 years to wait on this, where you can take action. I actually plan on covering that. I do this
Oh,
coming,
okay.
or the October supervisor report. And that's not gonna be my main topic, but I'm at least gonna do a slide or two to kind of explain the law, because I can see the frustration as to why aren't we collecting this money? Why aren't we foreclosing? But there are limitations in terms of the timing.
So is there, somebody had told me, well, they don't have to pay for them, then when they hit the third year, just pay $500 and then they get another 3 years. Is that correct?
It is kind of correct. I don't know if 500 is enough, but basically, typically, as long as they're making an attempt to pay it, and any payments they make, they go to the furthest overdue taxes. But
On
The-
interest probably, yeah. Okay.
yeah, I'll try to make sure to cover that as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything that any of the staff cared to address in the reports, or anything that they felt should have been added? Okay, hearing none. Item number 6 is consideration of action to be taken by the committee administration. We have no action items today. Consideration of reports, resolutions, ordinances to the county board coming from this committee. Item A is approval of the 2026 pay plan and wage structure. Anyone care to hear from personnel? Okay, I do.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Afternoon.
I have tried to organize the discussion around the recommendations for wages and benefits for 2026 in this PowerPoint slide here. that won't let me move forward. So I'm going to start with the 2026 wage recommendations. We have been discussing these recommendations for a handful of months now. We made some changes to the proposal a few months back, and what has been discussed as part of the most recent proposed budget is what we will be looking at today. We'll also take a look at health and dental benefit recommendations as far as premium funding goes. And then I would ask for your committee action to propose to the board for the October meeting. So a little bit of historical data as far as what the county has provided for wage increases going back the last 5 years. Well, I guess the 3 out of 5 years, the employees received a step increase as well as a 2% increase overall to the pay grid. That's about a 4.75% increase for most employees. With the exception in 2022 of the implementation of a classification and compensation study, which placed employees on the new pay grid, receiving at least a 5% increase. And then you can see in 2023, there was a bit larger of an increase to the overall pay grid as well as steps. So that increase was quite a bit bigger. So not all, but some things that we look at when we are considering what we need to be increasing our pay structure by, like lifting the wage grid by in order to stay competitive or try and keep up with cost of living expenses and things of that nature, include statistics from the Bureau of Labor, information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, one of those being the Consumer Price Index. So that's the measure of average change over time in the prices paid by consumers for a market basket of consumer goods and services. As of August 2025, BLS published that the national average or the national CPI rate for the last 12 months is 2.9%. So meaning in the last 12 months, goods and services have increased by 2.9% across the nation. They also break it down by region, and they even have local data. The Midwest region in the last 12 months as of August was sitting at 2.8%. And the closest in proximity region to us is the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington area. And that was actually sitting at 1.8%. And I'm thinking there's a little more legwork in how they find that data. So that lags by about a month compared to the other two statistics. So that goes as of July 2025. The other measure that I find interesting and worth noting is the Employment Cost Index. So this basically is a measure of the cost of labor, the cost to pay employees from organizations that are required to report this information. This is helpful to take a look at because it shows us what the average is as far as how much more employers are paying to have employees. So this graph actually shows a difference between the red line, which is the private industry, compared to the blue line, which is government. And what this shows us as of March 2025 is that state and local governments are have increased by 4% in the overall total cost to pay employees. And private industry has increased by 3.5%. This gap is actually closing. Last year, when I reported this information, state and local governments were ahead by a full percentage. So we were seeing kind of like governments were actually paying more or seeing bigger increases, and private was not. So it's interesting to see that gap closing a little bit. Any questions on CPI or cost index before I move on to the proposal specifically? Okay. Our consultant also considers comparables like to us, other counties, in recommending what should be applied to our wage structure in order to keep it competitive. But of course, that's the information we pay for and isn't publicly published like BLS statistics are. And so if there's further questions about comparables, I'm happy to answer any of that as well.
Any questions?
Okay. So all of that being said, we are recommending to increase the wage structure by 2.25% overall. And basically how this would work is increasing what is now the midpoint of each pay grade by 2.25%. Because we are looking at moving from the fixed step system to a wage range, this is kind of a visual. I guess I tried my best to show a visual of what that transition looks like. So up top here is just a screenshot of our current wage grid in 2025. So grade D here, you see the positions listed that are compensated on that grade, and then there are 11 steps. The midpoint of grade D is step 6 here, $20.34 per hour. How we would arrive at the pay grades for 2026 would be applying 2.25% to this right here and arriving at the new midpoint, which is $20.80. And then increasing that by 2.75% 5 times to get to the max rate, and decreasing that by 2.75% 5 times to get to the minimum rate. That's basically how this is structured without having the fixed increments, right? It's just a range now. And we've talked about why we are looking to move away from the fixed incremental steps so that we have more flexibility in offering to new hires or considering mid-year adjustments and things of that nature, and also in being able to propose fiscally sustainable pay plans for each budget year. Any questions on moving from steps to pay grades? So we do still have this pay grade D here. The minimum is 1816 for next year. The maximum is 2381. All of the employees in these positions here will fall within that range.
Yeah.
So is the 2.25% built in to all the budgets already, and then the wage plan is on top of that?
So as far as what's built into what's proposed in the 2026 budget is assuming that everyone meets expectations and will receive a total of a 2.75% increase, 2.75% increase. So technically 2.25% of that is really an adjustment to the pay structure, and then 0.5% is the like performance or merit related increase for meeting expectations.
Thank you.
Yes.
So someone in the midpoint will get that 2.25 wage, and then if they meet or exceed.
Yep. Yep. So it's kind of putting together what has previously been separated, right? We always talked about cost of living increase plus a step. It's always been looked at separately. Looking to still maintain the wage structure and keep it current, but then also just move to a percentage increase overall when we talk about individual pay increases. And that does include a portion of the market adjustment to the wage structure, as well as, in this case, proposing 2.75% for meeting expectations is a 0.5% for merit or performance related increases. And then for exceeding expectations, the percentage would be that full 1% over and above the market adjustment to the wage structure. As part of this, we are proposing for employees that get the rating of needs improvement. This would be an employee on like a performance improvement plan, not meeting all of the key functions of their job, not receiving a pay increase for 2026. The asterisk here is indicating what we have talked about previously, and it was a suggestion by the committee to add the ability for employees at that max rate, which is now step 11, to receive the difference of, okay, if they're at the max rate, it'll bump up about 2.25, and then they'll receive about a 1% in the form of a lump sum payment that we would pay in the pay period that includes January 1 of 2026.
That was my other question, but I don't know if I need to wait for but what about if they meet expectations and they're at the max?
If they meet expectations and they're at the max, they would stay at the max.
So the 2.25 adjustment?
Yes. Yep. Which is how it works now. So employees at step 11 only ever receive the cost of living adjustment, right? Because they can't go a step higher. So while it doesn't change for folks meeting expectations that are at step 11, it would be a new opportunity for high performers at step 11 to earn more than the max pay.
And the needs improvement would get that cost of living as well. So it's really not zero, it's.
No,
But it's
they
zero.
were
Okay,
they
so
would
they
not
won't.
receive. Yep, that's
So
where
the
we're
wage adjustment wouldn't.
it would fall below the max. Yeah, if they're at a step 11 and they need improvement, they start to fall below the max rate of pay.
But what if they're not at the max? They're in the middle.
They start to
The-
so like if they're right at the middle, the wage grade moves up
Yeah.
slightly, they'll start to fall below the middle. And that is justifiable in the sense of if they are not meeting the performance expectations of the job, that they start to fall below others that are, right? And so I'm happy
If
for,
they're at the bottom.
yes, so that is the one exception.
Well,
If we have somebody that, and honestly, I looked a handful of months ago, we had like 11 people total in the whole county that were at step 1, which is the minimum rate. But if that were to occur, we'll
So-
have a conversation about it, but it's
some of that
unlikely.
is people that are at step 1 are typically new employees within their first year, which is
Introductory
an
period.
introductory period. An individual who is needing improvement within the introductory period can be essentially terminated without essentially the level of cause that is required for someone outside of that introductory period. So there's a little bit of a risk there, but I think there's also something to be said about a new employee who needs improvement and whether we should be moving forward in the first place.
Mhm. And I know there's some kind of philosophies here, right? When a new employee starts, we know that they have so much to learn. And we're not saying that if you don't know everything, that you're not meeting expectations. Is that employee meeting the expectations of where we would think that they should be 2 months into the job at that point in time is the question. Not so much, they have so much to learn. And I would say too, if anybody received a rating, really, anyone receiving a rating of needs improvement, we are reviewing closely and working closely with the manager, and especially we'll be doing that if pay is tied to it to ensure that everything is within compliance.
Any other questions?
Okay, so a few other adjustments that we are proposing with the 2.25% increase to the overall wage structure. We are also proposing for the in lieu of fringe rate to increase by 2.25%. This is the rate of pay that is available to part-time employees that are not eligible for the same level of benefits as full-time employees. This includes vacation, sick leave, paid holidays, the employer contribution to health insurance, and things like that. So it is, I would say, pretty standard, maybe not always, to increase this rate by cost of living. But I do think that there have been very few occasions where it was decided to not. So we are recommending for that to follow market increase. And then as well as the deputy medical examiner rate, this is a rate, it's not on the wage ranges. It's in the casual pay grid. It's fixed at $15 per hour for 2025. We are proposing to increase that by the 2.25% as well, so that we can keep up on that note. So any questions about those two things? Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right, that does take care of the recommendations for wages. So I would
Okay.
really encourage discussion on anything to consider moving forward with that.
Okay, Supervisor.
So one that's kind of wage, kind of health, the staff that are eligible for health benefits but don't take them have a benefit that pay as well.
That's correct.
Has that been reviewed with industry or others to see if we're still kind of in the range of others?
I'll be honest, recently, no, it hasn't changed for a really long time. The reason for that is because of the funding piece, right? There isn't really a way to offset that increased cost, while it may be the best idea. And if we were to be directed to look into that further, we can do that. But at this point in time, it is not recommended to increase those.
Would you happen to know offhand about how many staff that would apply to?
Offhand, so we have about 333 that elect health insurance, and then the remainder would be the full-time employees that don't. I would say it's less than 100 employees, but I can definitely get that specific information and share it after the meeting or at the next meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. At this point, would this committee like to move forward and recommend the acceptance of this proposal?
I'll move back to this slide so we can have a discussion about that.
Supervisor Bashan.
So right now we are budgeting for 50% exceeds expectations.
Yeah, so I guess everyone in our personnel costing spreadsheet is assumed to be meeting expectations. And then there is a sum in anticipation of 50% exceeding. So that difference between 2.75 and 3.25.
So we may come in under that
We may, yes.
potentially.
For the
Or-
July check-in, 25% of the employees received exceeding expectations. We do expect that to increase, right? Because that was really the starting point for the sometimes hard conversations, the clear conversations to be had. What can I work on? And I've seen employees put that into action. And so I would expect that to increase to 50%. I don't know. We will see it as really our first year to gauge what that looks like. And
How much, if we wanted to change the numbers for exceeds, how much would a 1/4% cost?
will you bring up the exact, I have another slide for that, but Dan included some costing for like what a full percentage looks like. So it's like a little easier to do the math on that.
So a full percent to the general fund. So as we did, that sheet that you've seen with the columns was $156,000. So divided by 4. So, yeah, so what, 15 divided by 4?
39,000.
So that's what you'd be looking at.
Okay.
That would be 100%. Yeah, so that's 1%. So that's 1% of everybody.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to go figure out a 1/4% would be about 40, and then half of that would be like 20. Right? If you said half of the people were to get that.
Okay.
This year accumulates,
Mhm.
right?
Supervisor Bauer.
Yeah, how far up the scale does this go? Does this go all the way up to all employees, including department heads, everybody, or is it,
Yes,
it does include everybody, okay? Or do they have to negotiate
everybody-
their own? Yes, I mean.
on the
except for-
standard wage structures, there are a few positions in that separate casual structure that are not on a wage grade.
And the deputies and the elected officials are not included.
And the represented, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone care to make a motion or an amended motion? Is there a requirement for more information?
I will make the motion to go as presented. I'll do it that way, I guess, 2.75 and 3.25.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. Supervisor Bauer makes the motion to accept the plan as presented, seconded by Supervisor Bashand. All right, any more discussion? Supervisor Bashand.
I just keep thinking about the fact that the difference between the meets and exceeds is just 0.5%. So that's kind of why, looking at the full fiscal reality, I don't know if increasing it to 3.5 for a little more difference is in our best interest, balancing employee morale versus financial versus all of that. So
Dan,
Yes.
you address that, please?
So obviously this is a conversation that's been
Right.
been brought up, and I guess I want to kind of explain our reasoning for that admittedly small difference between that. And I think we've heard a couple of arguments around, should it be tied to meeting expectations? Do we need to provide managers more time to learn this performance management process? And then there should be a larger gap. And I would argue that the reason for the small gap is really a compromise between those two. Having finances applied to that makes it a difficult decision to make, right? When you're a manager and you're sitting down and having that conversation and telling someone you are not going to get the full raise that you possibly could, right? That's a very difficult conversation to have, and one that our managers have never had to have before. So making that a smaller number, I'm not going to say it makes it an easy conversation, but it makes it an easier conversation. Um, and so that's where I would argue, like, there's a little bit of a, if you didn't provide a difference, then that manager doesn't have to make that, like, sure, you exceed, whatever, like, because it doesn't matter, so I don't have to have that hard conversation. So having a little bit makes it that you have to make the decision, but if we make it larger, it makes it a harder decision. I do think in the future we would make that a larger gap, but it allows our managers to go through that process and learn and get better at that without the larger decision or the larger difference between the two. So that's our reasoning for that small amount in this year.
I think definitely for next year, I'd like to see a larger difference, because then they would have more time to get familiar.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any other questions? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous passes. Thank you all. Good conversation. Thank you for your presentation. We can move on.
I think it's agended separately, so you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is approval of the health and dental premium plan for 2026. And again, we'll hear from Jenna, our personnel and assistant county manager.
Okay, thank you. So I want to start by kind of giving a overview of what the self-insurance fund has, the activity, I guess, over time. It actually, as of the 2023 audit, was well above the recommended funding level at 3.5 million. And if you would have seen in the audit that was just presented recently by Kerber Rose, the ending net position for 2024 was 1.9. So we did see quite a decrease in that fund due to basically the premiums fund the costs, and there was not enough premiums to pay for the costs that were coming out due to high claims. And so when we talk about, we started with an 18% increase recommendation from our consultants. And now we have landed at 13% for 2026. That is really because that's recommended because that is what they think will sufficiently fund the costs for 2026 based on our claims history and a really fairly small percentage, about 3% administrative fee increase, and then the increase to the stop loss insurance premiums make up about 20% total of the anticipated spend. 80% of that is really all the things, the care, the prescription meds and those things. So that is where the recommendation of 13%, while we were really happy that dropped from 18 to 13, 13 is still a sizable increase. And that's really just to make sure that we can fund the plan. I'm not worried about 1.9 being the fund balance for this, or is it okay to say fund balance? For the self-insurance fund, but we don't want to dip too much lower than that. So necessary to make those increases to premiums. And these are our, oops, sorry, that needs to say 2026. So these are our two recommended or current plan options that exist for health insurance. We have option one, It's a $2,500 single deductible or a $5,000 family deductible. Option 2 is a $3,500 individual deductible and a $7,000 family deductible. As far as enrollment numbers, what those look like year to date, really, as of August 2025, we have 820 total, I know that's small, total members on the plan, or like insurance people say, total belly buttons. So that includes all of our employees as well as their dependents that are covered. You can see that that has increased quite a bit over time. We did make some improvements to our plan designs going back to 2023. That included reducing deductibles and max out of pockets. And so I do think when employees sit down and kind of weigh the options with their family members each year, it has shifted to sometimes the county being a more competitive benefit plan option or a better choice for them, as well as some of our additional services like the membership with Reform Medicine and things of that nature. What's interesting is that our member to employee ratio, basically for every employee we have, how many dependents are on the plan, we're sitting at about 2.5%. The national average is 1.8. So not only do we have quite a bit of our employees electing the plan, they have more than average number of dependents also covered by the plan. So you can expect to some degree with enrollment numbers increasing that the costs will too. Not always, because if they're not needing care, that doesn't always have to go hand in hand, but we have seen the increased claims cost with the increased enrollment. The enrollment, I guess, from single to family, we have 64% of our employees are on a family plan and 36% are on a single plan. And then here's the breakdown between the two plan options. This is option 1 and option 2. So our most popular family plan option is the $5,000 deductible plan. It's not on the slide, but I'll also note that, because I get this question a lot, what if we had more tiers for plan options? Right now, we only have single or family. Some employers offer an employee plus spouse at like a lower premium than a family plan. And while sometimes that's a financially good approach, for us in Dunn County, it wouldn't save us money. It would actually send us in a worse direction because about 35% of our claims are spousal claims. So if we charged a lesser premium, we would still have the cost of the claims. So I think it's important to note that consideration. These are the rates that we are proposing for 2026. And we've talked about as part of budget discussions that we are not proposing to increase the employee contribution at all. So that looks like the county taking on the full amount of the increase. And so overall, this is the total monthly premium. This is the county contribution, and then the employee contribution, which we're recommending to stay exactly the same. The reason for that is because the wage increase is already lower than what everyone's used to, right? We're used to about a 4.75%. And we don't want to see higher health insurance premiums take away from that increase and impact take-home pay at the end of the day. So these numbers here have increased by the full 13%. recommendation over and above 2025. And that is included in the most recent proposed budget draft. Again, good news that it went from 18 to 13, but it is still a sizable increase. Any questions on health before I talk about dental?
Supervisor Ball? Okay. Supervisor Vogel, did you have? All right. Okay, go ahead.
Not to sound pessimistic, but of course, because it's been a tough year, trying to make all of the puzzle pieces fit together for the budget. We also received an increase in the premiums for dental plans. Our dental insurance is fully insured through Delta Dental, meaning we don't pay our own dental claims. We pay premiums and they pay our claims. And we are looking at an 11% increase for the dental plans that are offered from Delta Dental of Wisconsin. Currently 2 plan options. This is a tiered structure. So we have employee only, employee plus spouse, employee plus children, and employee plus entire family. So the county by policy pays $50 per month per employee towards dental insurance. And that hasn't changed since I've been here. And so when we're looking at an 11% increase, that is fully on the employee contribution side of the dental plans. Is a pretty significant dollar amount for that full family plan on the more robust dental option, certainly.
Jenna, is this monthly amount or annual?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, this would be the monthly amount.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Michelle?
So the dental would actually be more expensive than the health insurance for a family.
That the highest plan option, yes. Yeah, it's really an unlimited plan. I think it's kind of unheard of. We're not ready to change the plan design. I think a lot of people have gotten a lot of value out of it. That is, I think, a lot of the reason for the increase in the premiums, because they call it the loss ratio on our plans has been high, and so I don't know if they're losing money, but what we're paying for what we're getting is requiring an increase.
Yeah. Supervisor
So-
Barr?
So are both of these 3 years? Now the dental looks like it was what, 23, now the 26, right? Is that a 3-year term?
This is annual. So the first year that we switched from Anthem dental insurance to Delta dental insurance. And the first year or the first contract we had with them, they offered a 2-year, 24-month, which was great because it didn't change in the first 2 years. Last year, we saw an increase in dental premiums, and now again this year, and it's been an annual renewal. We every year we ask if a multi-year contract would help the rates, and it hasn't. So I think of consideration and something that we can look into as we move into 2026 would be reviewing the plan design structure and things like that, and trying to decide what direction to go for 2027 if this is going to just continue to hike
I
up.
think
'Cause
my employers in the past were like 3 years, so we didn't have to do this every year. Now we moved our belt 1 notch this year, and the next year we gotta do it again, and it just seems like get awfully tight here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the vendors are a little less willing in some certain industries, not all, right? But a little less willing to sign up for multiple years or offer multiple years because
things are pretty volatile in the dental and the health world, and they want to be able to uh, um, issue those increases if they need to year to year.
Supervisor,
Thank you. How many employees take the dental insurance? Is that less than the health insurance?
Yes, far less. Yep. I can get that number for you.
Curious.
Yep. Maybe I think I have some team members online. If they could chat it to me, that would be wonderful.
okay. Question, does our plan, kick in for employees who have, say, a spouse who has a plan at their employer also? I know sometimes, one takes over and then the other one won't contribute. Other
Mhm.
plans, they'll contribute after. Do you know?
Yeah, I think it depends is the answer, but and I don't know if you're specifically asking about like a spousal carve out. That would be like if my spouse has the ability to elect health insurance through their own employer, that they have to and they cannot be on the Dunn County plan. That I believe the county had that in 2017 and prior for a period of time. While that would likely reduce costs, we are not recommending that.
Yeah, I know that back a number of years ago, my wife and I both had plans. At first, it was great because, we'd turn it into one, Dennis could turn, and then they'd pay, and we'd get that max and we could start applying it to mine. And, we could, if necessary, maxed out. And so we got both plans of pay. The last year or so that we did that, whoever became the first payer, second payer would say, no, that's already covered by your first payer.
Mhm.
And, I don't know if the law changed or, if that's still the case, but
I think it's less common with high deductible health plans, right? Because I think with like copay structures, that made a lot of sense. But you have to meet on a family plan here 5,000 and a deductible, and then there is still a max out of pocket. Maybe between that deductible and the max out of pocket, there's some value in stacking plans, but I think it's not as common now
okay,
because of the plan design.
okay. Any other questions? All right. Care to move forward? Supervisor Bashan.
I'll move to approve the 2026 health and dental premiums.
Okay. Supervisor Vogel, seconds. All right, motion by Supervisor Bashan, seconded by Supervisor Vogel to move ahead with the premium plan for dental and for health for the year 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you very much. All right. We are down to next meeting date. Item 8. October 25th, 2025. And 8A is to propose to cancel November meeting and move to a December 18th date to stay away from the holidays and also push back the gap by not having a meeting in November. Does that sound agreeable?
So, yeah, and I think it had been brought up before that the November meeting fell on Thanksgiving Day and the December meeting fell on Christmas Day. And so we do not have a December county board meeting. And as it is right now, the admin meeting would fall after the November board meeting. So if you were to have action that went to the board, it wouldn't go to the board till January from November. So to me, there's not a whole lot of need unless there's something that is purely a committee action. And then that's
Yeah.
moving December. You couldn't go the other way in December, or you would fall on like January 1st. So that's the kind of the only Thursday that would work.
But a guy could move it to a different day as well as a Monday, Tuesday, if the vouchers need to be paid later. Does that hurt anything that way?
No, and that was the other announcement I was going to make, is I failed to put the vouchers on the agenda, so we'll do 2 months worth next time. Um, but yeah, we would essentially in December, we would approve those vouchers through, it would be through the end of November that we would approve them. So January is when you would be approving the final vouchers either way.
Also gives us a little more wiggle room as far as financially closing out the year in terms of even, per diems and expenses and so forth. So.
Yep.
All right. Is that agreeable? Okay. We'll put it on the calendar that way. At this point.
I would clarify, you did say November or October 25th, but it is the 23rd, unless you want to meet on Saturday. So,
Oh, all right. Agreeable to everyone? Okay. And then if necessary, we may be called to action if it is deemed necessary for this committee to handle any action item issues. Otherwise, that will be our meeting schedule.
we'll pile up a whole bunch of policies for you in December.
Be prepared. Christmas cookies. All right. Yes. Go ahead. Can hear from our county clerk.
Just a quick question, just a general survey. So we're looking at some potential budget savings for the budget for 2026, right? Some of that extended from the programs that were presented at the budget workshop in August. And one of those was from to look at the county board and committee structure on what we could do. I'm just kind of wondering about the committee administration's feelings on meeting monthly or potentially meeting every other month as a cost savings tool. I just kind of wanted to get some feedback on what you thought about that. There are a couple of committees that meet monthly that have kind of determined they don't probably need to meet every month. So I was just wondering what the committee on administration's appetite would be if that were a recommendation.
Supervisor
That
Bauer.
was something I was gonna recommend as a budget cut for next year, maybe combined meetings, maybe even, committees. Maybe we got too many, maybe some of them report to the same different committees, when I just get them all together into one.
Yeah.
But every other month, it depends on the committee and what they have to do, I guess,
Yeah.
It'd probably be a good idea.
And I think that's always a flexible solution. In other words, we're administrative, so Dan or, court counsel or somebody says, we have things we have to address, then, that would change, but otherwise, the issue becomes probably handling more material and then reviewing 2 months of vouchers as opposed to one, but.
Do you know what an average cost would be for a committee meeting?
Yes, I did the math on that.
Depends on the mileage of each one coming in.
It depends on the mileage, and so it varies by committee, but there's roughly 5 members per committee, right? So we're paying $250 out in per diems per committee, and then there's an average of 27.43 miles per mileage claim. So, there's kind of some expense for that. So it's roughly around $325 per meeting for each committee meeting that we're having. So that's one of the reasons. I mean, 325 times 12 meetings, you can see the math gets added up that way. Times all the standing committees. I mean, so it really kind of makes a big difference. So we've been looking at that. I think we'll look at the potential combining committees as well. So yeah, that's the rough numbers of what it costs.
Did you have costs on the employees coming down here? Are they on overtime or are they just kind of doing takes time out of their day as well?
It
so that's
does.
gotta be a cost,
Yeah,
but-
I mean, if you look behind you, all the different department heads, right, that we have here. So I mean, they're also still working away whilst back there. But I didn't calculate that into the cost, but that would also free up the department heads for the other projects that they have as well by changing the meeting structure and schedule.
Well,
And I think
and also frees up some of Dan's time and.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, the monthly reports are another component of that, and even if there is monthly meetings, do you need monthly reports or are they every other? Cause that's a time, that's probably maybe one of the bigger time sucks from a staff standpoint is putting together those monthly reports, so.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what the committee's appetite would be for that for 2026. Knowing that after April, the committee on administration members might change, right? But if we could kind of get a direction of if you're interested in us exploring that as an option, that might really help give us some direction.
Okay, Supervisor Bashan.
I think just in general, maybe, committees that have action items more frequently might need to continue to meet more frequently, but ones without standing action maybe
Right.
could meet less.
Yeah, and I mean, in the past, if there hasn't been any material for the Committee on Administration to cover, we have canceled meetings in the past, right? So we could maybe look at, I say this, but it's mostly a Dan thing. If we looked at maybe an organizational structure of maybe like we handle this on these 2 months and this on these 2 months and kind of the general flow of how the year goes, knowing that in the fall, we're always going to look at wage and health insurance premiums and stuff like that. So kind of coming up with a calendar for that, we could make it more effective and efficient. So
And the written reports really started with COVID, right? Because before that, it was usually verbal.
depends.
We both started during COVID.
I think that was the case. I don't remember having to do them before that. So that's something maybe we look at readdressing. Maybe the reports be more like, hey, this urgent thing happened, not like, hey, this is what I did month, the routine stuff, what's going on. So maybe looking at readdressing to save some staff time.
Well, the other thing, I mean, the written reports are nice. It does give you time to review and ask questions. We could ask department heads if they were willing to highlight one thing from their report, kind of like what we do at the county board when they make their annual report. We could also just say, is there an opportunity for, I do a little bit more of a thing in April. Lynn does something in not June, that's not good for you, a different month, right? So maybe we choose from the Committee on Administration departments that report a time that you really get a more of an in-depth opportunity to present. I like to come up here and talk to you guys. You know that's my jam. So I'm always willing to answer those questions, but maybe we could look at that too. So you get a little bit more of an interaction one-on-one with the department heads. We'll look at some of those options. That's all I was looking for, is just kind of a direction on what the appetite would be. So thank you.
Can I go one step further maybe and take a look at the conventions as well? I mean,
Yes.
do we send this many people to a convention?
Never again.
And the cost? I mean, obviously you got your chair, your vice chair, treasurer, clerk, the ones that should go, the main ones have to go or should go. And if they don't, leave an open chair for somebody else to go, but set a limit maybe, then I don't know how you do that. And the new members got choice to go first because they've never been there, but yeah.
Sure. So I did discuss this briefly with,
We have to stay on agenda.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're off the agenda. We'll look at some options. Yes, for budget
Yeah,
savings.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm just bringing up.
Yep. All right. Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your input.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you can talk.
You offer. Are we sit down?
Yeah.
It
It is on the executive agenda.
It is, that's why I wanted to tell. Distracted by.
You can do either. Meeting everybody. Yeah. Let's do that. So one of the things I talked with Kelly about was,
Actually, 300.
so Agnes, right, is a brand new county board.
But
this
that's
year, so
because-
she gets to go to the association for all the uniform board
Lot of
to go, they don't have to pay a registration.
money.
We still have to pay for hotel and stuff like that.
Yep.
Um,
They'll say-
knowing that the April election will happen, we'll probably have several new county board
members,
members.
yeah.
So they would be able to
Yeah.
go for free in the fall.
Yeah.
Kelly and I did discuss maybe limited to just chairs and vice chairs of committees. Or with the approval of like the chair of the board, right? So like, it's
I don't want
been wanted
to,
to
somebody
go.
else in that committee
Yeah.
go then, is that?
Yeah, and like we have that structure too, right? So like, if you don't want to go, but Spencer wants to go and his brother's guarantee, that would, yeah.